But is this really a reasonable analysis of the trade-offs involved? The issue is that it's not necessarily just an inconvenience of having to show your documents. It is the inconvenience and the problem of racial profiling, increased racism, for example, being separated from families, being torn from communities, and etc., in addition to the economic consequences that come from enforcing a law like this. So a quote from Shika Dalmia points out, and this is in a Forbes op-ed, this is April 15, 2010, quote, "The law opens all kinds of tantalizing harassment possibilities for officials like Joe Arpaio, the notorious but popular Arizona sheriff who has made it his personal mission to root out undocumented aliens from the state by launching crime sweeps in Latino communities on the flimsiest of pretexts." Under the law, Arpaio could troll Hispanic neighborhoods demanding the papers of anyone breaking, say, a local pooper-scooper law while walking their dogs. But law enforcement officials are honorable, right? The criticisms that opponents of the law are leveling may be unfair to these respected law enforcement officials. Aren't they going to be enforcing the law equitably, not including their own racial biases if they have one? Police officers will not let this racism or race involve itself in their calculations. Section 2 also of the bill provides that police officers may not solely consider race, color, or national origin in making stops or requesting paperwork. Also, quote, "Reasonable suspicion has been well defined over the years, requiring that police officers consider a broad totality of circumstances, instead of singular factors as race." Supporters give police officers basically the benefit of the doubt. But this might not be so reasonable. Racial profiling is, in Arizona at least, to some extent, kind of useful. So in general, it's Hispanics that are illegal immigrants in Arizona. So there's an incentive, at least, for police to use that factor to their advantage. In addition, citizens can sue for underperformance or not enforcing the law, creating an incentive for these police officers to ratchet up the number of arrests that they're actually making. And in addition, there's a record of racial profiling that exists in the country in African American communities, for example, and in addition in Arizona. So there's plenty to believe that this law will be enforced inequitably and that it will be a problem. But one of the problems here is that the law might undermine trust and cooperation between law enforcement officials and actual citizens. And this could include aliens, people here on a visa, and it also could include illegal immigrants cooperating with police. Because, of course, if there is this air of suspicion, it will be more difficult for an illegal immigrant to volunteer to call the police if there's some kind of emergency, for example. In a Washington Post article, this was an op-ed on April 27th, quote, "One of the concrete problems with the law treating undocumented immigrants as criminals is that it gives those without papers a powerful incentive to stay as far away from the police as possible. This will only make it more difficult for local police to investigate crimes and track down fugitive offenders because no potential witness who is undocumented will come forward." But illegal immigration is the biggest factor, the biggest criminal problem in Arizona. It could potentially override any concerns regarding cooperation with the police on other crime matters. So just a couple facts. Again, 460,000 legal immigrants in Arizona out of about 7 million people, apparently 595. The border is porous. There's major drug trafficking. The police have lost a lot of credibility because of their inability to enforce the law, it's a big problem. So there's a quote from Governor Brewer who says, "Border-related violence and crime due to illegal immigration are critically important issues to the people of our state. We cannot sacrifice our safety to the murderous greed of drug cartels. We cannot stand idly by as drop houses, kidnappings, and violence compromise our quality of life." And indeed, 70% of Arizonans agree that it's that big of a problem, and they support Arizona's law. So if it's that big of a crime problem, then should we really be holding out because it might, enforcing the law, undermine cooperation on other law enforcement matters? Maybe not. But again, should Arizona itself be making this policy? And should the Arizonans? Or should it be a national level policy? One of the big questions is whether Arizona even has a constitutional right to implement immigration law. But most just say, forget the constitutionality, it should be a federal level law, not state. And the reason tends to be that the nation sees its immigration policies as a reflection of its image. People say, hey, this is our policy representing me as a citizen of this country abroad to other countries. It reflects on how I see myself as a citizen in the culture that I want to live in, the society I want to live in. This should be a national level policy. And at least it would be unfortunate if there was a patchwork of state policies implemented. So that maybe there's an Arizona policy that is fairly hard line, and then there's one in California that's much more soft, and it tries to integrate illegal immigrants through a path of citizenship into its state. How can you have that kind of patchwork? You need a national level policy. And one of the things that's happening here is that Arizona's law is actually compelling national action. So what you've seen from Harry Reid is that he's put immigration above climate change on his agenda. And this may be the great ironies of this whole situation, which is that to the people that oppose Arizona's law could actually be the greatest thing that they could potentially ask for, because on a national level it could compel comprehensive immigration reform that could include the very things that they want to see, a path to citizenship. But as this all plays out in the coming weeks and months, again, the debate will center around how we want to define ourselves as a nation. That is, do we want to be an inclusive country that attempts to integrate these illegal immigrants into citizenship? Or are we a nation that wants to stick to the laws that we've had for some time and enforce those laws? A path to citizenship or deportation? This will continue to be the central question of this debate. I hope you'll take a look at our resources on debatepedia.org. We have one on the Arizona immigration law. In addition, we have one on a path to citizenship. This is Brooks Lindsay from debatepedia.org. Thanks for listening.